Welcome back to Margin. I wanted to talk today about the true cost of war. Now, as Russian tensions continue to grow, not only with Ukraine, but globally, MSN reported that President Biden sketched out a broad range of sanctions and other penalties targeting vast swaths of the Russian economy, including frozen assets at top banks, sanctions on Kremlin-aligned oligarchs, and limits on exports that might benefit the country's technology sector. To add to these initial sanctions, new sanctions on crude oil, which equates to between 7 and 8% of the US demand, as well as on natural gas, occurred earlier this week. Now, we are seeing the costs of the invasion continue to ripple through the global economy as uncertainty continues to abound. So looking more closely, crude oil prices had its peak closing price on March 8th at $123.70 per barrel and is currently trading at around $108 per barrel. So according to AAA, we hit the highest recorded average price per gallon of gas for both regular unleaded at $4.33 and diesel at $5.13 just today. Now, factored into the overall CPI index, February raised again from the former peak in January of 7.5% to 7.8% inflation year over year. So the increase in inflation year over year has increased almost 8%, looking at 2021 to 2022. In addition to the higher prices seen through inflation and ongoing supply chain issues, we now have added sanctions to the list, but this has not come without significant cost to Russia. Now, Russia is firsthand feeling the pressure of not only a number of fumbles from its hand-to-hand combat, but seeing the impact of these sanctions, threats of both cyber attacks and restricting the banking activity out of Russia, as well as a massive sell-off, erasing almost 58% of the MOEX or MOEX stock market index from its 52-week high, leading up to the market being shut down on February 25th, which has persisted to this point. Now, to add to this, the Russian ruble lost almost half its average value to the US dollar, now being valued at just 3/4 of one US penny. Now, back to the home front. Beyond the issues related to inflation and supply chain, cyber attacks are a growing concern, not only in the US, but also globally, as wars are not only fought in the form of bloodshed, but also by means of cyber warfare, and this may be used as an ongoing basis of attack globally. So according to an MSN article, in 2017, an infamous malware known as NotPetya, if I'm saying it right, infected computers across the world. It initially targeted Ukrainian organizations, but soon spread globally, affecting major corporations such as Maersk, WPP, and Merck. The attacks were blamed on Sandworm, the hacking unit of GRU, and caused upward of $10 billion in total damages. Now, I mentioned this in a previous episode, but last year, Colonial Pipeline, a US oil pipeline system, was hit by a ransomware attack that took critical energy infrastructure offline. Now, the Biden administration says it doesn't believe Moscow was behind the attack. DarkSide, the hacking group responsible, was believed to have been based in Russia. Now, these are just a couple of larger examples of the effects of cyber attacks in recent times. As a country, we have become used to an environment where identity theft, credit card fraud, amongst a number of other cyber threats is the norm and is something we regularly see. So all this being said, many of us may feel a bit ill-equipped to know how to navigate aspects like inflation that represent increases experienced by a cost of living increase that continues to climb. And if it were just gas prices, if it was just interest rates that were increasing, or housing prices, cost of new and used vehicles, food or energy otherwise, it would be one thing. But now we're facing greater threats around cybersecurity issues, fears of ongoing viruses, and even threats of chemical or biological weapons. And in the midst of all this, how do we even plan for that, especially when it comes to our finances? Where do we even start? So in a time like this, where much of this is unprecedented, I would encourage you to control the controllables. Since a number of these areas do directly affect personal finance, I would encourage you to start by reviewing 3 key aspects of your personal finances to see if you are prepared in these areas. Now, the first one comes down to plan. It's important for you to have a plan for your money with a contingency for these price increases that we're experiencing. So for example, if you're normally spending $350 per month on groceries, add 10% or $35 to that budgeted amount. And it's important to then look at how you may be able to combine trips, negotiate a 4-day work week, or work remotely, partially, or fully in order to save on fuel expenses. But also take a look at non-fixed expenses like subscriptions to see what you can pare down in order to redirect spending to areas where costs are on the rise or increasing. Now, number 2 comes down to reserves. Take a look at what you have in reserves and where those reserves are sitting. Remember, a credit card, a line of credit, or some other form of credit is not an emergency fund, as when there is tumultuous times, those lines of credits can be pulled pretty easily. Now, that being said, take a look at your situation and see if you have $250, $500, $1,000, or if you have built up your living expenses in reserves to 3 to 6 months. Do you have a certain amount of your emergency fund in cash on hand? Having proper reserves is critical to weathering storms. And when we're dealing with cyber attacks and other aspects that we may not have experienced before, it's important that you have a plan for those contingencies that you may not expect. Now, aspect number 3 is debt. When streamlining your expenses, look closely at your high interest debt and work to pay off that debt by means of looking at your highest interest bearing account. Maybe it's your credit card, or maybe it's a line of credit, or your lowest balance, what you have the lowest balance on, in order to order that debt to focus on paying down and off these debts. Now, there's a lot that is out of our control, but control what you have the ability to control by taking a look at these 3 areas of your personal finances. Now, once you have properly gone through this process and have a bearing of how you're doing financially, you will have a greater level of peace in navigating the other aspects that arise that you don't have control over. If this information is helpful to you, explore the Margin membership, where me and my team will help you take the information you're learning and apply it to your life and your finances. I've built an interactive course that allows me and my team to come alongside people like you to help you revamp your finances and build margin into your life. Click the link in the description below for more information.